one day I'm chilling there, man, and somebody owed us some money. We got in a little scuffle. Yeah, got a little scuffle. And I was heading back home. And I was still all pumped up from the scuffle, you know? And this is so weird. When I was getting back to my apartment, my neighbor happened to be best friends with one of my old best friends. And my best friend was there. I hadn't seen him in years. And he ended up coming back. I guess he was on his way to a party or something. And he ended up being there. He forgot his wallet. And he came back for his wallet, and I was happened to be coming back at the same time. So we ended up catching each other there. And he was one of my best childhood friends. He would bring me out food when I was sleeping on the streets, you know what I'm saying? Blankets and shit. Like when I was 12. And he ended up, he ended up coming over to my house. I didn't realize he had been on drugs and shit now, you know? He was doing a lot of drugs. And I had a lot of things in my house. I had guns and money or whatnot. And he borrowed my phone. And he went off somewhere, and he was on the phone, but he was being, like, secretive. He was being quiet. And I always had this intuition about me, you know what I mean? Like, I knew that something was wrong. And we had a lot of shit in the house, a lot of cash. And he ended up bringing the phone back. I got the phone back, and I realized all the calls were blocked. He had erased them. And then when I hit him up about it, he said he had called the mom. And it was at that point that I knew that he was lying, because he started getting shaky and nervous. And we ended up, I took him to my room real quick, and I was like, hey, come over here real quick, bro. I got to talk to you. And I take out the gun, and I questioned him, you know, and he started stuttering and stuff like that. And I told him, who were you calling, bro? This is important. You know what I'm saying? And as soon as he started giving me like 2 or 3 answers that weren't the same, they were different answers, I knew that he was lying. I beat him. That happened in my room. And then just so happened to be that some girls were there too. Yeah, my cousin's girl. And it was me and my cousin and another cousin. So I guess my cousin heard the scuffle inside of my room, and he came and knocked, opened the door up, and then we dragged him out to my living room. And, we ended up putting hands on him. And I had the gun out. And, I had the gun out, and I happened to be going to my fridge for another beer. And I had left the gun on the TV set I had. And my cousin was right next to it. And my victim, he was on the floor. And when I went to grab a beer, I came back, and my cousin had the gun. And, long story short, he was on his knees or whatnot. I remember my victim, on his knees. And, he started praying. And he prayed. A gunshot went off, shot him in the head. I didn't shoot him, Yeah, but he was about like 4 feet away from me, when that happened. There was something weird about that moment, man, I became an atheist after all the shit I seen in my life, you know what I'm saying? Didn't believe that there was a God or nothing like that. But when that happened, there was no doubt in my mind that something exists that was bigger than me, for sure. I felt something leave his body, you know? I felt it. It was like, it was a tangible thing, you know what I'm saying? Like, you could actually feel it. And I remember him asking me how to pray, and he was staring me in the eyes when he was praying. Yeah, when the gunshot went off. And, yeah, I remember that, and I remember seeing his eyes, and I remember that the gun went off, and in my head, I feel like he was blinking afterwards. After the gun went off, you know? He was blinking as if he was trying to understand what had just happened to him. That he was dead, you know what I'm saying? Almost like a surreal experience for him where he got shot and like the impact, you know, tilted his head a little while and a little bit, and then he ended up just staring at me. Almost like his brain was still working, you know? I know that he was gone, but that's how it felt. And I knew at that moment that we crossed a boundary not meant to ever be crossed, a human type of thing, you know, where you're extracted from the tunnel of a collective realm. You know what I'm saying? It's like there's this tunnel we all exist in, a universal awareness that we all have. And then when you do something like that, you're immediately extracted and you're taken to another type of dimension where you're forever isolated from the world, you know. And that's where I was. At that point, I knew inside of my heart and my soul something had happened, you know.
Why did it escalate to that between, you know, the guy was on the couch, you beat him up. How did it go from you walking casually to a beer, the room's calm, and then all of a sudden...
No, it wasn't calm at that time. I beat him up, and I continued beating him up. And the more that escalated, the more anger I felt. And if I could go back, you know, you wouldn't do it. But now, being me now, going back and thinking about it, it wasn't him. It wasn't him that I was angry at. It was about the world, you know. I was angry at my situation. Angry, there ain't no word for it, man. I was just fucking anger, you know what I'm saying? And I remember feeling that shit, and just, it was going back to my brother passing away, you know. I always felt like my brother, like, there was this thing, a belief I had in like this darkness, this entity, you know, it's like God somehow, some way, you know what I'm saying? But at the same time, I would always battle through, is God who he is or what? You know what I mean? But I remember feeling like I prayed for my brother to be alive, you know, when I was a kid and I was raised in church, and I was always told that, you know, God can bring people back from the dead. So when I was 8 and he was inside of that casket, I remember feeling like if I prayed hard enough, he would come out, you know what I'm saying? He would actually come back to life. And when he didn't, I grew so angry, you know? So I always felt like I wanted to get back, you know? And so the whole praying thing, when he was praying, that's some dark shit, man. Fucking.
Did you know your cousin was going to execute him?
I think at that point, I didn't know, but I felt like perhaps either of us were going to do it, you know? It was it was a lot, you know what I'm saying? There was no stopping it no more. It was like an amalgamation of anger, you know. It just accumulated into this one moment, and that was it.
So
You know?
what's the aftermath of this? What happens?
Okay, so I ended up dragging him into my tub. Grabbed some knives, smashed in there. My cousin started chopping him up. He, chopped off his legs. It went through his stomach. There was a lot of blood all over the place. It's pretty graphic, man. Yeah. You know, it was dark. There's some more stuff that happened, but some of the stuff I can't talk about, you know?
Do you guys successfully hide the body, or you never make it that far?
No, so I sold to a lot of people, sold a lot of dope to a lot of people. I knew a lot of people. And there was these farmers that said if we ever had a body, we could take it over there. So called them up. Bagged them up, put them in bags, and then hook them out there. Put him in a truck, put the body in the truck. But he was there for 3 days inside of my home while we actually found a place to take him to, you know. Yeah, we ended up taking him out there, gave some money to my cousin so we could leave the state. And I stayed there. He ended up going to Washington with my aunts and my cousins, drinking a lot. And I guess he was having trouble sleeping. And he ended up telling my aunts and my uncles or something like that, like my cousins. And they ended up calling the cops on us.